All right, so Joanne, it's your meeting then.
My meeting?
Yeah, you're the co-chair.
Come on. I'm gonna kill you, Josh.
Well, we'll be happy to get it started.
I'm in a meeting. What's the password?
Maybe you can turn off your mics if you're not.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, no worries.
So hi, everybody, and welcome to this meeting. We have a lot of extra people today because we wanted to introduce you to our collaborators who are working with us as consultants. We indicated that our municipalities were so successful with all their grants this year that we needed to engage some other people to help us complete all the work. So that's why we have so many new faces on the screen. But our agenda today, I don't know if you want to quick share the agenda, Ken, just to orient everybody, but basically we're doing welcomes and introductions. Then we're going to talk about the survey and introduce our community engagement partner. Then we're going to talk very briefly about this idea of chapter captains. And then we're going to introduce you to some additional work that our interns from Westfield State University are going to be assisting us with. So the first thing is, it would be great if everybody is comfortable turning on their cameras so we can all be here as if we were in a meeting room, which we're trying to approximate. We're just going to go around and introduce ourselves. And since everybody sees a slightly different, yeah, so that's the agenda. You all saw it.
This is the agenda. So we're going to, work off this one. And I'm going to stop share so we can all see each other.
See each other. Thank you. So again, I'm Catherine Rattay at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. We are so happy to be working with you all on this resilient master planning process. And my colleague Ken is here. And then I'm just going to go around the screen. And so this is just your name and whether you're you're one of our people helping to do the plan or whether you're from the town and you want to just say who you are from the town. So I'm just going to go around my screen. Taryn Edgerton is next.
Hi, I'm Taryn, and today's actually my first day as an intern with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission.
Oh, Mary's here. Welcome, Mary.
Sorry, I have gotten off a very, very intense Zoom meeting with the state. So anyway, I'm here.
Okay, so we just got
Thank
started and we're doing our first item, which is just the welcome and introductions. So I'm just going around the screen. So now it's Josh Garcia.
Hello, everybody. Joshua Garcia, Town Administrator here at the table.
Amber.
Hi, I'm Amber Stearns. I'm also an intern with PVPC.
David Hobson.
I'm Dave Hobson, Town Moderator and Superintendent of Schools.
And Amber, Taryn, one of you is taking notes, right? Thank you. I forget your name, Kid RW. I forget your first name. Bob, maybe?
Yes.
You're muted.
Bob Kidd.
Yeah, Bob.
Okay.
But you're muted, so we can't hear you. All right, while he's figuring that out, we'll go to Dave, Chief Motter.
Dave Motter, Fire Chief from Blandford.
And then Kara.
Hi, I'm Kara Montague. I'm with Wildscape Design. With Rowan Signoni, we're assisting with writing the OSRP.
Thank you. And Joanne.
I'm Joanne Martin. I'm admin assistant to Joshua Garcia and the Board of Selectmen in Blandford.
And Rowan.
Hi, I'm Rowan Signoni, also with Wildscape Design. We're consulting with the OSRP update. Happy to be here.
And Judy Barrett.
So hi, everyone. I'm Judy Barrett, Barrett Planning Group. We're going to be working with all of you on the community engagement work for your plan, and we're excited about it.
And I have a note to turn up the volume. So I'm going to turn up my volume, which I guess everybody is in control of their own volume. Peter.
Yes, I'm Peter Langmore, and I'm manager of the Blandford Municipal Light Board with the fiber installation in town.
And Norcross, and again, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
It's known as Chips.
Chips, right.
Right, I'm formerly Plenty, but Chips is great, and I'm involved with the Historical Society, at president of the Historical Society in town.
And Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine Dennison. I'm with Bear Planning as well.
And Mary is gone for a second. Jennifer. Jennifer, are you there? She's the Board of Health. Thank you. And Edna.
I'm Edna
Okay.
Willander, Blandford Planning Board.
And you don't have a camera, is that correct?
I don't.
Okay. And Sonia Hutchins,
I'm here. I'm here.
and you're with the library.
Nope.
No.
Planning Board of Appeals.
Oh, okay, thank you. And Kara.
I'm here.
Kara's on the select board.
I'm with the select board. Yes.
All right, so who have I not done?
We have a
Looks like-
phone number here, 860-573-9606.
I think that's Jen.
Oh, styling in, okay. Great.
Bob Kidd here. I got a thing and I had to start
Hey.
again.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi, Bob. And Mary, you were out when we were just doing the brief introductions. Is there anything else you want to, or is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, just welcome everybody. I hope we're ready for a healthy session and a good discussion. And we need for open meeting laws on virtual meetings to keep track of everybody who's here. So as long as everybody has signed in, we're good.
We'll keep track with the participant list. We'll save that, and we have the recording. And then one of our interns are helping us by taking notes. So yeah, we'll keep track of that. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
pointing that
Catherine.
out. Okay, so again, sorry.
I was going to say first on the agenda.
And Linda just joined. Hi, Linda.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. We have a bunch of extra people today because we are introducing you to all of the collaborators and consultants who are assisting us. So we've got Kara and Rowan doing the open space and recreation plan, and Judy and Catherine who are going to be working on engagement. And Fiona is also working on engagement. So Mary, back to you.
We've done introductions. Are we moving on to community engagement?
Yes.
Okay.
So good afternoon, everyone. It is nice to see a big screen, and all of you fit in one screen at the moment.
Yeah, it's nice.
So so the first half of the engagement component is to introduce Judy Barrett and Barrett Planning Group, and hopefully the team that she has can provide some insight with some meetings that we're going to be having in the future to engage the wider community, in addition to the community survey that we'll be talking about right after introducing Judy. So if you want to say a couple of words. Oh, unmute.
You're muted.
Oh, I'm so used to muting myself. I forget to unmute sometimes, so I apologize. So we're just under contract. We're very excited to work with you. I mean, typically on a project like this, we would do a combination of a couple of kind of larger community meetings, which we've done successfully in remote participation. I actually am kind of becoming a bigger believer in this as time goes on, because I think that people who often find it difficult to go to meetings at 7 o'clock at night are able to do so from home. And so I'm seeing a much richer engagement actually in a lot of these meetings using remote platforms than we often did, even with very well attended night face-to-face meetings. So we would typically do a couple of those. We need to get to know the community. So we have to do some background work, which I'm sure we'll be working on with Ken and Catherine and their crew. We also want to talk to people. I mean, I've just learned after being in this field for 30 years that, you can only learn so much about a community from data. And so we will want to be talking to some people, some thought leaders in the community, just to get to know the town and be able to prepare for a nice, effective community engagement process, which we don't just make up out of our heads and we don't boilerplate them. So we're going to be wanting to connect with you folks probably individually, maybe find out who else we should be talking with. in the community as this process goes on. So it's typically a combination of some interview work, some small group type of activities, and some larger group activities through which you try to understand what are the community's aspirations for itself. You know, what is it that this community wants to be able to say about itself? How does it see itself in the future? How does it see itself today? And based on your existing regulatory scheme, your infrastructure, all the things that are kind of happening in your community now, where does it look like you're probably going to be going? And is that aligned well with where you want to be? And then through the engagement process, we try to begin to understand how do we maybe bring together those two things, the path that you're on and the path that you want to be. And, you know, there's a lot of technical aspects to that as well, which PVPC I know is going to be working on, but it's iterative. It's sort of technical. It's input from the public. We'll be back and forth. So you'll be seeing a lot of us.
Thank you, Judy. And as Judy mentioned, because she just signed a contract, we wanted the opportunity to give her the opportunity to speak to the group today. However, we will be working with her and her team in doing the information sharing that you know, is probably going to be typical of this process, as well as working with her to schedule these these big meetings that are going to be happening remotely. So I don't know if there's any questions among the group regarding Judy's participation and Bear Planning Group's participation in this, but she will be with us for the next couple of months to learn about Blandford and assist with engaging the wider community in this, you know, in this remote setting. And so we're excited to work with her and her team. But if there's no other questions or concerns about introducing Judy and her team, we can move on to the big topic, which is the community survey.
Can I just mention one other thing, Ken?
Sure.
So Catherine and Fiona are on this in this meeting today with me, which is great. There are actually two other people who you may also see in the course of this process. One is Alexis Lancelota, who's getting ready for a big meeting in Milton tonight, so she can't join us. And Tyler Marin, who does a lot of zoning, regulatory diagnostic work, regulatory analysis work for us, who's also just a really nice guy and may very well be pulled in to help support some of the interviews and so forth. So you'll see several of us, but if you ever have any concerns or something about the way things are going, always feel free to contact me. You can credit my team when things go well, and you can blame me when they don't.
Thank you,
Judy.
Yeah, so the next on the agenda, Mary, is the community survey.
Yes.
And so I don't know if you wanted to outline, you know, some of the things that happened, or I can discuss, you know, and synthesize some of the comments that were presented based on the initial review.
Have you had a chance to thoroughly absorb whatever was sent to you? Sort of, more or less?
More or less, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There are, I'm sure there are things that can be deleted that are not germane to Blandford. In speaking with Catherine the other day and a couple of the other members of the committee, if we can really hone this survey down to the bare bones basics and get it on one 8.5 by 11 sheet, both sides, I am fairly certain we would be able to send this out to all the residents with our street list in January. It must, by statute, be mailed by January 15th. So if we can get this together, we could do that. And we would be assured that every household would receive a copy of the survey, because not everyone in town is online. People know right this minute the town hall is closed to the public, so nobody's going to go there to pick up a copy. The library right now is doing curbside service only. You can go into the foyer and pick things up. But it really restricts, I think, access for everyone. So that's my input on that. Why don't you tell us what you've come up with?
Sure. So as you know, because we usually go through this process of sharing with the community a document, obviously that they get an initial a chance to review and provide comment. And we receiving your comment over the past few days from the various committee members that have shared their opinions and concerns about the survey being either too long or asking questions that you know, may be of personal nature, and also that maybe some questions can be refined or you know, integrated into each other. So you can capture that. I will say that I think one of the challenges about doing a survey in a single sheet is that because this is a comprehensive master plan, and a survey of this size has never been done for the community, and most master plan processes, you know, it probably is typical for a longer survey. And knowing that, that's why we started off with the longer survey.
Okay, could we back up for just a second, Ken? And
Sure.
Again, we are doing a resilient master plan, and I'm feeling like we're sending out a mixed message. Either we are going to work on how the community can be resilient, i.e. recover from a natural disaster or take care of our senior citizens during some extraordinary climate change incident, that sort of thing, as opposed to a master plan which infers development schematics kind of a thing. So what exactly are we doing?
I'd like to just address that a little bit, that
Thank you.
We're doing a community master plan in all of its requirements, Chapter 81D. It's a comprehensive path to the future for the community. And then we're adding in resilience because we are recognizing that the climate crisis is going to inevitably cause increasingly severe and unpredictable weather events that will affect the community. And so as you're moving forward with your path to the future, with your master plan, there will be things that could knock you off your path, these severe weather events. So we're going to anticipate those coming and say, okay, you want to do this, and let's say on the road, but the past history of flooding is not accurate for the future events that are going to happen. So if it's a road that's being, that's necessary as part of the vision to the future, the road has to be done differently because of the weather for resilience, or if it's a building, or if it's housing or something. So think of this, be very clear. This is a community master plan with resilience on top. So it's not a resilient plan, it's a master plan, because you already did your community resilience building process and you went through and said exactly all that stuff in terms of humans, in terms of the environment, in terms of our buildings. What are we concerned about? So it's a master plan with resilience on top.
Thank you, Catherine.
And what Ken and I were hoping to do was, I know everybody sent in comments, but if we could go around and just give everybody from the committee a chance to just give their couple of minute reaction to the survey. And then what we would like to do is go through question by question, because we've got 60 minutes of this meeting set aside for it. And we think we could actually, get to consensus on the revised survey to see how much we can condense it, because it's a balance to get enough information to really guide the future, but also get enough people to participate it so it's representative of the people in the community. And that's the difficult line that we're walking. But with everybody that we have here, I think we can succeed. So Ken, if you could just summarize the themes of comments that we heard, and then we'll go around and make sure that everybody has a chance to give their input.
Sure. So I know that there was comment about the length, and I think that was probably the biggest one, and totally understand that. The community values, so we've incorporated community values into some of the initial questions, and that's specific to understanding not very policy-based feelings about ideas that that are equated with town life and reasons why you live in town. But I think that there was some discussion on the semantics of the way they were worded, as well as a yes or no question versus a strongly agree to strongly disagree spectrum. So that I think that is probably something that came out of the set of comments that Mary had sent to us. Removing lines here and there, understanding that there are, that there were processes that may have happened in the past, and this is specific to understanding perhaps the land use section, let's just say, where one of the suggestions was updating the zoning bylaw and town regulations. I know that the planning board had gone through a recodification, or they were working with a consultant on recodifying and exploring new ideas. I'm not quite sure, based on my initial review of the zoning, which is as the land use person that's going to be working with the committee and with the chapter captains, and having some familiarity with your previous zoning bylaw and working with the planning board, that certain policies that would come out of this planning process are not quite realized in the document. So understanding if there are some additional policies that maybe we should be exploring within that vein that should be coming out of this, and that those feelings can come out of the survey. Some other comments were the demographics. I think one of the big things with being able to self-identify yourself when you are filling out a survey, it's optional. It's not going to be a requirement. However, I think it's very important to know who's filling out the survey. You want to be able to gauge, when we get all of the survey responses, who is filling out the survey, who has the which age group, which gender, who's working from home, and what types of answers are they providing with regards to economic development or land use, or other support or other town support opportunities. I know that there was some suggestion that there is data that exists, and that's true. You have census data and American Community Survey data that would drive some of the initial analysis of this, of the plan. However, the reason why demographics are in the survey is to identify the respondents that are actually filling it out. I know there was also a question about whether or not this would be household versus individuals. I think you may want to include the availability for everyone who lives in Blandford to fill this out, not just from a household. That could skew data. That could, and I understand the reasoning of the availability of using the town's ability to send things out to everyone on the town census. However, I think that because this will be available online and not only by request, once we discuss logistics, that anyone who lives in town, and even the younger people who may want to provide may want to contribute to the survey, would have that ability. So that is one of the discussion points regarding demographics as we've identified here. You know, whether or not some of these questions are necessary, that's another conversation that we can have. But I do think that it probably is very helpful for a community survey process to understand who's actually filling out the survey. And from there, you can make the analysis on, you know, and maybe make some conclusion as to why they're filling it out the way they are, based on their responses.
Okay. So was that the main categories, those 5?
Demographics, land use, housing. There were some questions about housing that, and it was specific to maybe incorporating sections of housing into land use, and that's specific to housing type. Let's see, land use and open space and economic development. So there's opportunity for refining some of these questions and making them clearer, as well as condensing. It probably won't be condensed to the 2 pages. However, I think it captures the sentiment that every section that would be usually discussed in a master plan, there's some analysis that could be made there based on community sentiment, based on what Judy and her team will be bringing to the visioning and community meeting settings. Yeah, Josh, were you raising your hand?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, you know, because I think Mary has a good strategy to get it out there, and if we can't condense it to meet the strategy, I don't know, how about instead we put on a 1-pager the information about the survey, the link, and then for those that are not able, you know, to Mary's point, that don't have, you know, the technology means to go online and do the survey, that they have a contact number that they can, you know, just contact us and we can mail them a survey.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, and it's one of those things when you know, I heard that you had the ability to do that and you wanted to do that, in my experiences with other communities, that's usually something that they try to do, but can never accomplish. For whatever reason, where getting a supplement to the tax bill or to any other communication that goes out, there's a hardship by the committee putting together a survey to actually include it in those mailers. So the fact that, you know, we can create some 1-pager that shows the resources, that shows that we are doing this process, so we can incorporate the project team, introduce all of you, as well as the survey link, and then future dates, meeting dates that, you know, we'll be scheduling with Judy. That could be a prime opportunity to just share that we're in town for the next couple of months and we're doing this master plan process.
Yeah, it could be a really nice in recruitment for chapter captains, and just a lovely overview and personal invitation to participate. I just want to quickly move us so that we're not talking at you too much, so we can actually hear from you. So just in summary, we heard comments about the length, about the values, about the demographics. And again, Ken was saying, it's not that we want to know who did the survey. We want to know what the groups of people feel. So we want to see if we can sort, like, oh, young people say this, whereas older people say this, or maybe there's no difference, and that's important to know. And then we learned a lot about, you know, that the zoning overhaul is already happening, and we need to, Josh is going to send us that so we can be clear about what's already underway. And then the other big thing was some of the questions were inappropriate for your community language and size. So let's go. Josh has already spoken a tiny bit. Let's hear from Joanne. If you have any other comments on the survey or really strong feelings that you want to make sure get heard. And you're muted.
Yes, I'm muted. I don't have strong feelings about it. Negative strong feelings, I mean. I come from a town that is about 3 times bigger than this. So, and I saw them grow gracefully in just this way, in taking care of reasonable elderly space and small businesses, so that there was some activity in the town. And I think that we can manage that here. But we need a lot of input. So it's good that we're talking about this. We need, there's a lot of elderly in this town, but we also need to hear from the young folks because they're the ones that are going to be here for the next 40 years. So that's why I jumped on board here.
Thank you. And Dave, for Dave Motter, or Dave Hobson, you unmuted first. Go ahead.
Just a couple of quick statements. I would think that you've done this quite a few times before, so you've honed this survey down quite a bit from past practice. I don't really have a problem with any of the questions or statements and sections of the survey. I can see statistically how they would be useful to divvy up data and help drive decisions. I don't know how many pages can go in a first class letter, but I assume it's many more than one. So I don't think it's a bad idea if you can get this down to say 4 double-sided pages, which is just short of what you have now, and then also email that out. And even if it's a few cents more an envelope, that's a fairly inexpensive way to ensure that we get data from all the people in the community, because I would never fill out a paper survey if I had a chance to do it electronically, but I know there's people who are the exact opposite. So again, I think the survey is pretty well put together. I would think that you've done this before, so you've again honed those questions down. I don't really want to mess around with it too much.
Thank you. Chief? Dave Motter?
Yeah, looking at that survey brought back terrible flashbacks when we did it in East Hampton. A lot of elderly wanted the pen and ink one, but being a community whose diversity has changed, we had a lot of non-respondents because the younger generation did not want to spend the time to do pen and ink. So I think the shorter we can make the pen and ink version, the better. But we have to make sure, like was said, reach the younger populace in Blandford because they're the future, and we don't want to lose them because they don't want to sit and do a pen and ink one. So that I think the one page, like I think Josh had said before, here's the information, here's a link, but if you don't have access, here's where you can get the pen and ink one. And I agreed with Mary, there's some of the things in there that probably don't pertain to Blandford. I still haven't got the lay of the land yet, but I could see where they would be redundant, and that's something that will kill a survey. If somebody answers the same question 2 or 3 times, they stop.
Yeah, thank you. Peter?
Catherine, sorry, really quick, just to let you guys know, we have 3 other members that joined us, Linda, Margaret, and Judith. Judith and Margaret are both on the COA, and Linda Barnard is on our couple of committees. Linda, remind me.
Everything.
The Historic Commission, the Historical Society, the Blandford Fair. There you go. That's enough.
And Historical Society.
Yeah, I said, oh, yep, you're right, Tips.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
Welcome, Margaret and Judith and Linda. Peter, we're just giving feedback on the survey. So we're going around. I'm calling on names to make sure everybody has a chance to speak.
Okay, so as I said, I'm the chairman of the Municipal Light Board. There's nothing in there about that. I feel Ken said something before about available online, survey available online. A good portion of the town would not have access to that until the fall, when everybody should be operational in late fall. So that's important. There's no question, there's no mention of broadband in this survey. I did say, without being specific here, go to 14 or 15, you can, I said, Blandford is scheduled to be internet ready. Have you signed up? Yes, no, if not, why not? I feel that's, I know there's one person on this call who hasn't signed up from Blandford. I do know people who sign up, and we are at 63%. So I think that's very important for the survey, especially why don't you have it? I mean, it is an economic, important economic, will be for Blandford when we start operation in March. Any other comments I had refer to specific questions, which I think when I getting the impression you'll be going through each one at a point later on.
Yes.
The things that don't apply to Blandford. I mean, we don't have apartments, we don't have shopping centers, all that stuff, which is apropos to large towns, cities, not Blandford. So I think we can cut down on that. But I guess that's what I have now.
Thank you.
It will be important to have the internet access in the future for people to live here. That, basically, look what's happening with the schools. So thank you.
Yeah, Mary.
Oops, sorry. I think we should have a question. I know the town voted it down, but it was not by a huge margin. I think we should ask people how they feel about having turnpike access in Blandford, because in the next 10, 15 years, things may change. It might be a good thing to include. And do we have a deadline for when we want to get this out? I think that's important to know.
We'd like to get it out as soon as possible. But since Judy and her team are on board, we wanted to give them a chance to look at it too, since they're going to be doing the in-person engagement, and this is the first phase of engagement. But so we've just barely, we just got the contract today, so we've sent it to her, but I don't think she's really had a chance to look at it.
And
but
yeah. The length of it is my biggest concern also.
Yeah.
And I think David had a really good point about, we can certainly put more pages in the envelope that goes out with the street census and say, if you want more copies, you can contact us, and also give them the link. If you want to do it online, do it online. I just don't want to miss anybody. That's the big thing.
Yes.
So we've got several options available, I think. Statistics are not my thing, so.
That's okay, they're ours.
Good.
All right.
Moving right along.
Okay, Kara's got her hand up.
Yeah, so just a quick comment. I don't think that people are going to reach out for extra copies, only because if they're anything like me, if it's in front of me, I'll do it. And if it's not, I just won't even think of it. So I don't know if there's a way to get, maybe even just send at least 2 copies to each household. Just a thought. And then the other quick note was that I didn't see anywhere on the survey of someone putting their age, or even if it was like an age bracket we could put on the top if we want to try to sort those a little bit and see where we're getting those responses from. That might be helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you. Chips.
Couple of thoughts. Number one, as you get to really know Blandford, the old timers here, there are a number of them that feel that external forces have pushed us around in terms of the amount of land that we've lost to the city of Springfield and the turnpike coming through and whatever. And so the having on here a definition of affordable housing and talking about external percentages and whatever, I think there are going to be some members who immediately put up a red flag and say, no, what are they going to do to us now? And I think it's something that we ought to be sensitive to. It certainly applies mostly to the old timers who've been here for a long time. But anyway, that's just make sure that there's a sensitivity to that fact.
That's good. Thank you. Bob.
Yeah. When I began to look at this, several questions came up, and not the least of which is manufacturing and business that doesn't seem to really apply. But what I did suggest to Mary is that in Western Massachusetts, and I realize that's kind of a regional statement, but there is a whole cottage industry of people who do artwork and sculpting and writing and weaving and all, knitting, all those kinds of things, that I think that maybe somehow we can incorporate that in as the business plan of Blandford or something, to at least perhaps look into giving these folks some sort of an outlet for their crafts. I also look at the history of Blandford and know that, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, before there was air conditioning, we had a summer community. And while that still exists to a degree, there is no housing for those people. There is no bed and breakfast kinds of things. If somebody was looking at it, I don't know how you might look at that in the future. And finally, one of the questions on the survey is, are you a seasonal person? How are you going to get those people to survey?
Good point. Thank you very much. And yeah, the creative economy, I'm really happy that you brought that up. Linda.
I'll be honest, I have not read the questions. I don't think I have any questions. So, but I do know that the planning board did an uptake on the zoning bylaws this spring. So those are out there. So I would hope those are looked at.
Absolutely.
And I like Josh's idea of putting a single letter in the mailing, as Mary said. But my concern is putting too many pages in that will lose the information that the letter is supposed to bring back to us. So just putting a single letter in and saying, options, if you can't get online, we'll send you a copy, is a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Sonia is next on my board.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
I would have to agree with Kara. If it's not in front of me,
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
A little better.
Oh, okay. I would have to agree with Kara. If it's not in front of me, I'm not going to do it. So there's got to be a way, I think, to get all of the residents the questionnaire for them to complete where it's in front of them. And I think if you say, hey, if you want to, do this online, if it's not in front of you, you're probably not going to do it. And a lot of people won't have access to do it online until, like someone else said, probably later in the fall. With that said, I did read over all the questions, and anything that I had a concern about, someone had already addressed. So those are already out there. And I think, though, with Mary, I would agree that it's probably a little bit lengthy. And if there's a way to shorten that up, that would be better. I know when I got the US Census in, I looked at it and I was just like too overwhelmed. It was just too many questions for me to answer. But, and that's all I have, really.
Okay, thank you very much. Margaret.
Oh, Margaret, you're on mute.
Margaret, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
There we go. Sorry. I had muted myself. I didn't get an opportunity to look at everything. I was having computer issues. I agree with the manufacturing. I think it's a wonderful thing to bring up because there are a lot of cottage industries in the area, and I think that's important. I also do totally strongly agree that we need to have a paper questionnaire, as Peter had mentioned, that until the fall, there are a lot of people, especially the seniors, that don't have access. And even after the fall, they may still not have computer access. They may have signed up for the, the process of hooking up, but not actually gone through with not having a computer or anything like that yet. So I think the paper questionnaire is important.
Is that it?
Yep, for now.
Thank you. Judith.
Oh, Judith, I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, you were unmuted before. Sorry. There you go.
Okay. Everyone has said thoughts that I've had too. I feel I agree with Mary that I know it may sound crazy, but I really think that turnpike question should be back on there just to see what would happen in the survey. I think it's important, not for today or maybe tomorrow, but somewhere in the future. I really think it will be looked at again. And our people, our seniors really need a paper questionnaire, and we can try to think about ways to get it out to them. But I really think we need to do that, because I think even after the broadband, there's going to be those who are not going to want to deal with computers, period. So having a paper questionnaire would be really important. I love the cottage industry thing. We did have a bed and breakfast in town. I don't think it's that she's doing it anymore. But I think she had a wonderful reputation, and it would be great if we could encourage other people to do that kind of thing. So those are my thoughts. And I also don't like long surveys. As I get older, my attention span is getting shorter and shorter. And so I would encourage it not to be as long as well. And that's
Okay.
about it. Yep.
Thank you very much. And Jennifer, I hope, have you figured out, are you on the phone so you can talk? No, Jennifer's still muted, not able to talk. Jennifer, do you want to put anything in the chat? And in the meantime, I'll go to Edna. Edna, you're muted. Do you have any comments on the survey?
Difficult for me to learn these new things. Most of my questions were answered. One of the things on the planning board that we really need to address this year, and hopefully Ken Comey can help us with that, is mixed use in the business district. And that's pretty important that we get that done this year. The other things about getting the demographics from the respondents is imperative, I think. And the internet access is going to be really important. I also was very anxious to get the turnpike question in the survey. But all the rest of it, I guess we'll be working on, and I don't have any more.
Okay, thank you very much. And 860-573-9606. Who is that?
I think that's Jen from the Board of Health. She might have a issue with.
Oh,
her.
that's both. Okay, so she's there, but she can't talk. All right. Well, Jen said in the chat, definitely shorten it and have both hard copies and on the computer. So thanks for doing that. I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to talk. Does anybody have anything that they want to say now after hearing everybody else? So then I'll turn it back to Ken to go. Oh, Kara, sorry. Kara, go ahead. Oh, no. All right.
I was going to say
the other Kara Montague.
Oh, Kara Montague. Oh, okay. Sorry.
I guess I don't know if this is appropriate for the master planning process, but and I know the survey is already long, but I didn't know if there was maybe any reflection about COVID and sort of how that has affected the planning process or people's thoughts for the future based on the current situation.
Did you guys apply? Josh, did you get in your local rapid recovery application?
I'm in the process of completing that.
It's due today. So you are going to be getting that
tomorrow?
No, tomorrow. I keep thinking today's Friday. I keep thinking every day is Friday this week. Sorry, I didn't mean to freak you out. Do tomorrow. You have a day.
Oh my God. All right. Yes, tomorrow, if not tonight, I will be submitting.
So Kara, and for everybody who maybe does know or doesn't know, but the Commonwealth has allocated $9.5 million for every community that wants to apply, and they say it's not competitive. You just have to ask. And then they will assign a planning consultant to work with you from February to June of this year to identify a path forward. It's really focused on COVID and how it may have affected you economically, how it may have affected the economic success of the community. But they will assign a consultant to do this local rapid recovery plan. And it's fantastic that you're applying because it'll be part of this process. So we'll be doing the master plan, and a subset of people in the community will be meeting with the consultant on the local rapid recovery plan. And so you'll be able to do that in sync. And so part of the local rapid recovery plan will be the community outreach, talking about how did COVID affect us and how are we going to recover. So it's fantastic that that Josh is already thinking of that. Obviously, he's always thinking of everything, and so that will be concurrent with this.
Catherine, which are the, are we gonna go through the questions? Because I'm curious, how can we condense it?
Yeah, that's what I thought we could
All
just.
those areas that folks said that are not relevant to Blandford, which questions are referring to? And
Yeah, so Mary sent us a marked up version. I think Ken is going to share his screen and show you what some of the comments were on the marked up version, or else if he doesn't have that, he'll just show you the original, and we'll tell you, like, we got these comments on this section and these comments on this section, and make sure that everybody, I mean, we want to do it as a group, but of course we're going to refine it and get it back to you. We're not going to send it out until you've had a chance to look at it again and then say, yep, this is right. And I think, because we're so close, we're right here, I'm right here in Springfield, and we're going to be in the community a lot. We can spend an afternoon driving around and dropping it off on everybody's porch, a paper copy. So I think that we can definitely accommodate the main things that we've heard, which is make it shorter, make sure it's available both online and in paper. And then, now we can tweak it with all of your input.
So I know that there was some initial discussions or initial comments about the community values section, and we have currently, it's 13, this is misnumbered, but there are 13 questions in here, which I think in review of some of the initial comments, there are definitely ways to input some of the sentiments that are trying to be captured here elsewhere into the document, specifically either the open space section, when we talk about natural resources need to be preserved, and then also some of these ideas about small and local businesses and services, because I think that's captured in the economic development section. But I guess if the exercise is to go through each individual question, or you have in front of you the full screen of this first page, I guess if we want to just invite comments, or and at this point I can refine as we're going through this process, and then have a conversation that way.
How many questions are there again?
There's over 35.
Maybe we do it in chunks, like I think what you said about the values makes sense, that we're going to take the 13 value questions, we're going to condense them, we're going to make sure there's no redundancy, because I really appreciate what Dave Motter said about that'll turn, I think it was Dave, anyway, whoever said it'll turn people off if you ask the same question twice, they'll just be immediately like, ah. So I think that's really good. We'll clean up with that focus and condense the value statements.
I also think sometimes people, when they read a statement and they have to claim it, they might, it evokes a different response than if they're asked a question. So I do think there are ways to integrate almost everything that's in these value statements into the topic questions for the master plan, so that you guys get what you're looking for, and maybe the survey respondent doesn't feel quite so daunted, by the whole thing. I mean, there's some good stuff here, Ken. So
great.
Okay, Catherine, one of the suggestions that came through was, instead of the strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree, what would be wrong with making them a yes or no answer? That's going to simplify it and shorten it.
Yeah, it's just, you only get yes or no instead of, basically, normally it's like, 8. So let's say, 800 people do the survey, and we say, like, 75% either strongly agreed or agreed to value statement number 3, whereas, blah, blah, blah. It just gives you more variety, but.
Okay, why is it important that we know how many people are intent upon a purpose or a value, and how many people are less intent, and how many people don't care?
Statistically, it makes a big difference, Mary. If you use it in a
Does it?
Likert, yeah, using a Likert scale, it makes a huge difference in how you interpret that data.
It does.
Okay,
Hey, value,
thank you.
value statement number 4, I think, Mayor, you meant Mark, right? Please put a check mark next to the top.
Yes, yeah.
And instead of a check mark, would it make sense to rate their top 3? You know, their first, second, and third?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
good
I
idea.
think what
We know
Judy
what the
suggested though
compromise
is really important. We can get rid of the value statement piece altogether so
Oh,
that it's not so off-putting, and when we're not like telling people, what are your values? Like, it'll just be an easier, if we get rid of the value statement piece and turn them into questions, then it will, as Judy said, I think it will feel less daunting that people are having to put themselves out there, especially at the very beginning of a survey. We can start with some softer stuff and, you know,
I
build
think
up.
you can get at almost everything that you're trying to get at in these value statements by knitting them into questions in other sections of the survey, which gets maybe to the issue of length a little bit, but also might feel a little bit less intimidating to people who aren't used to taking surveys. Just my thought.
So does that sound good to everybody? If we could say that's a decision for this piece? I can't see everybody because we're sharing, but if anybody has an issue, just yell it out and talk about what you're.
To Catherine and Ken, how important is this piece to what you're looking for as, you know, results in this process?
No, we can fold them into questions. I think it's a great solution. It addresses your concerns about it being too long and also being off-putting. Yes, we can, you know, basically cut out these 2 pages and get them into questions. So we're looking at, now we're down to 7 pages instead of 9. And we know our goal is to try to get it to 4.
I also think too, I'm not sure, Catherine, what your experience is, but the survey is just one piece of community engagement. It's not the be all and end all of the whole planning process. So sometimes things come out of a survey that we do early on in a planning process that we go, I wonder why people responded that way. And it becomes a good discussion piece in your first big community meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these are things we kind of heard in the survey. Maybe just take 3 things out that are really interesting and might be very unique to Blandford. We've never heard this stuff anywhere else. And it gives you an opportunity to, first of all, say to the community, we actually read your survey responses. But second, there's just things that don't make sense to us. And we're planners, but we're human beings and we don't know your town that well. So I would
Good
just
night. Have a big day. Have a nice night.
Who is that? Sorry. Thank you for being here. Sorry, we can't see you. Hi.
Just remember, I guess all I was trying to say is this is just one piece of engagement. So the whole plan isn't going to be, this isn't the scaffold for the entire plan.
Could we look at question 5 for just a minute?
Sure.
Yes.
Bob, is it the question 5 in the demographics or this one here?
The value statement 5.
Okay.
I'm concerned with what the term light manufacturing says. I'd rather see home-based manufacturing. And perhaps expand the EG to include art and writing.
Okay.
That's a good point. Ken, are you
But,
typing?
you know, it wasn't that long ago,
Yes.
we did have some light-based manufacturing in town and some garages and things. So you might want to keep
You
that
might want to
in
do that
mind.
with another question then.
Okay.
Yes, but again, we're going to take these first 2 pages, the value statements 1 through 13, and turn them into questions and then integrate it out. But so let's go down to 3rd page and see what the next chunk of questions is, the demographics. So,
So I know there was I think Kara from the select board suggested that we add a question about age ranges. And so we can do that.
Yeah, maybe just something quick at the top with, you know, between the ages of, I don't know, what would be the youngest, like 16 to 18, that would give us like school age kids. And then just out of curiosity.
19 to 21.
Yeah.
26.
How many copies of the survey are going to be in each household I mean, is everybody in the household able to fill out a survey, or how is that going to work?
That was
I
our
mean,
idea.
ideally.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Kara.
What do you think?
I was just going to say, ideally, everyone would. But I was just thinking if we sent at least 2 to each household, then that would get us the majority. And then we could say there's also a link, or if you would like another copy, you know, we can get you one. Or I had suggested giving them out at the transfer station. Most people go to the transfer station, and just having, you know, them like have them out so people can grab them or something.
I'm starting to get really interested in thinking about what teenagers and young adults and they're like 19, 20-year-olds, how they would fill this survey out would be very interesting.
Well, I was wondering if we couldn't do something in the school,
Yeah.
just, you know, coming from teaching, if you couldn't, you'd have to split the kids up, obviously, if you just had the Blandford kids. So that might be a little tricky, unless a teacher wanted to use it as a teaching opportunity, to talk about master planning and civics and government. Oh,
We
sorry.
could actually split out the Blandford kids, and if there's an age demographic you want that to.
Jen called you, and Gregory must have called you at least
Email.
5, 6 times.
Hey,
No,
Jen.
if you're charging.
Jen, we
I don't
can
know
hear
if
you.
the host wants to just mute Jen. I think you can just mute her.
I can't hear.
Let me.
Okay. They just asked me a question and I can't.
Yeah. If you go to participants, I think
Yeah.
you can mute her. I think I can too, actually.
Let me
No,
stop
because
sharing
it says
screen just
phone
because
call.
it's easier. Mute. Okay.
Okay.
There you go.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, Dave.
So-
You were talking about school stuff.
Yeah, so if you wanted to target, for example, middle school, high school students from Blandford, we can actually send them a link via their student emails. We can sort them out pretty easily.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's great.
Can we get them extra credit?
Yeah, we'll have to do that by teacher.
Okay.
We also have our interns from Westfield State University who are studying planning, and we're planning to work with them to see about doing some in-person or virtual, but engagement specifically with younger people in addition to the survey. But it's great that we could get them to do the survey.
Yeah.
So, at school, we
Survey,
have,
can we look at question 14?
Yeah.
I think we can save some space if we just put those police, comma, fire, comma, plowing, comma, and then give a space for people to pick which one they want to talk about, rather than ask them to go through each and every one of these services. Just a thought.
Yeah, that'll condense it a little bit.
Yeah, when it's in an electronic version, it will be much shorter because it'll, like you say, it'll just appear that way. It won't take up a line. Yeah.
There may also be a way to kind of ask this so that you can control for the things like there was just a horrible snowstorm and somebody's mad because their street didn't just get plowed out. So I think we may want to think about, oh, listen, you don't know what it took for me to get to my office today, but I guess, you know, I can complain along with everybody else, but I just think maybe we could sort of figure out, maybe we should just talk about how to word this question offline.
Sure.
This is the area that I thought might be appropriate to put a question on the internet.
Okay.
Broadband. I don't know. Maybe there's somewhere else, but this
That's good. That's perfect.
I think this is the perfect area to do that because we're
Yeah,
talking about town services here.
Not broadband services, maybe internet services, right?
Yeah, and people don't really know what broadband. Yes.
True.
And so, Peter, I know that Mary had suggested language that you had posed, so that will, once I get that document, I can just cut and paste that.
Thank you. Yes, thanks.
We could probably condense it more by taking out administration.
Thanks, Josh.
And the demographic questions that above, people were, there were some comments that there were too many of those to sort, that it may not be, we may not need all those questions. I don't know if people who had those comments want to want to weigh in at this point.
The question number 7 is, I don't know, maybe it's just me, or is it weird? Do you earn money working from home? Can we get rid of that one?
It's a weird question. Yeah.
The reason that you would want to ask that, of course, is that some women who may be home with children and aren't being paid for it work much harder than people who are getting paid, whether they're.
I was thinking about it more as working, as in,
IRS would probably be interested in your answers.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's an opportunity to address that type of, working from home. Maybe not
Home-based
home-based
businesses.
businesses.
Yeah, that's a big piece of business out here.
Right. And it's been identified in the conversations that we've been talking about today. So we can definitely, I think, reword that.
And put in, get around the, do you work in town? Can that be incorporated too? Do you work in town for money? Whatever.
I think there's a question in there. Yeah, do you work in town? Okay.
Yeah. Or do you work for the town?
Most of us don't work for money who work for the town.
Right. That's
So we can ask that. Do you volunteer with the town?
There you go.
My question about this, and I don't know if Blandford's sort of situation is very different from where I'm living, but the idea of do you work from home, I think has just drastically changed with COVID. And I'm not sure how that could be reflected here.
Mm.
But I think it definitely changes the answer for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Compared to a year ago.
Yeah. Do you normally work from home?
Yeah.
Could it also just be a select all that apply question? That's, are you employed locally, out of town, from your home, something like that?
Yeah, I think we can definitely provide those options, saying, how are you employed? Or,
Oh, that's better.
Yeah.
Could you put something in there about, let's see, during pre-COVID, did you work from home? And post-COVID, will you be working from home? I just did a huge questionnaire for Mass Council on Aging, and a lot of it was pre-COVID and current.
Yeah.
Are we trying to get whether you work from home or whether you make money in a business from your home or your location?
I think the main thing for the town is the home-based businesses and whether, you're supporting them adequately and you have the appropriate regulations. That's historically, that's why that's been an important question, but.
So working from home is really not the question. The question is something along with, is your income from a home-based business or a location-based business? And that would include anybody that's in agricultural as well.
That works better, David.
Yeah.
We do have a good number of DBAs in town who do work out of their home and are able to sustain themselves.
So you got that, Ken, David's, was it Dave? No, Peter's version of the question.
Providing the,
Do you have a home-based business? What was it? How did you phrase it? Yeah, okay.
home-based business, agriculture business? I guess it would be based on industry or, what type of work you do, and then maybe provide those as options.
Right. So it's not that you work from home. It's that you have a home-based or a location-based business.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Then Josh suggested adding schools to this list for 14.
Yeah.
Question, is there anything in here I don't remember asking what type of work one does? I mean, at least in a general sense. I mean, you're asking everything else about demographics. How about what kind of work do you do? Type of work or industry, you know?
And toward what end for the town? How will the town support people depending on what kind of work they do? Or how is that relevant to the town's vision?
Are you asking me a question?
Yeah, I'm asking you, like, toward what end would we ask that question on the survey?
About the same end that you have every other demographic question. Sorry.
Well, I mean, but that's what I'm saying is, so like, we have the home-based business question because the town could have regulations in place that support home-based businesses better. But knowing what people do for a living doesn't necessarily, I'm not seeing the thread to where the town would support that based on what they're doing.
Fine. Okay. You can say that about some of the other questions too.
Well, that's what we want to hear, definitely. If there's questions here that because we're trying to cut, so if there's any questions that you can't, you know, again, the idea is we want to understand stuff that the town, that's going to help you achieve your vision, and that issues that we need to understand that relate to the future of the town. So
Catherine?
Yes.
Could you give an example, please, of how the town could support a home-based business? I do advertising and marketing for various and sundry companies throughout the Commonwealth. How could the town support that kind of an industry?
Broadband.
Okay.
Right. If you found, I mean, you're already moving on broadband, but if you found that, oh my God, 80% of our people work from home and we better make sure we have broadband, or 80% of our people work from home, that means, you know, we really don't have to worry about economic development because we're really a home-based business community that like everybody's doing fine. Like
promote ourselves in that way for those who are looking for a place to live in a community like Blandford, a rural community, and still work from home or operate their business out of their home. We can promote ourselves to that sense, right? When we're talking about trying to attract people to come to Blandford. And to know who they are, because a lot of times there's grant resources that come down the pipeline for small businesses that a lot of these folks really don't know about because they're just not, you know, their ear's not that close to the ground, but ours is, and we can do that outreach and say, hey, did you know this is available to you in support of, you know, whatever issues you might be going with because of COVID, you know what I mean? Things of that nature.
Yeah.
So connecting them with the Hilltown Collaborative then, Josh, is that what you're thinking?
Well, you know, I mean, it can be any scenario. A most recent one is funds that came down. I think Hilltown CDC, remember they were applying for a COVID grant to support small businesses impacted by COVID, and we signed on to that. I mean, it's just knowing who those businesses are so we can effectively communicate information when these resources are available. That's just another opportunity.
Yeah, and back to Peter's question which I said, you know, maybe isn't that useful? If you did ask what people do in their home-based businesses, then you know, that could be really relevant in terms of what Josh is talking about and what kind of support they need. And maybe you have a cluster, like maybe it turns out you've got all these people doing something similar and you didn't know, and now they could be connected and accelerate their work. So I've talked myself back to your question.
You have a space next to question 5 to put in what do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we should go. Are there any more of these that we can get rid of or condense? And again, we'll condense them based on all the stuff you've suggested.
Catherine?
Yes.
Just so you know, I'm actually going to have to sign off. We have the final meeting tonight for a major project we've been working on for a year. I'm going to have to sign off because I
Well, yeah, thank you so much for being here, and it's nice to have
thank you,
everybody to meet you.
I'll be in touch. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Judy.
I know there were concerns about the questions with people with a disability, that was an illegal question to ask, that we couldn't ask that if we were then going to ask people the opportunity to share their names. So whoever brought that up, can you comment on that? Does anybody remember that comment? Okay. Well, we'll research that and just make sure that we're not doing anything that, you know, makes people uncomfortable or puts them in an awkward position.
We're not asking people to identify themselves any place on this. I don't see how that's illegal to ask if you have a disability.
Okay, good. All right, so let's go to part C.
Housing. So I think these are probably, you know, understanding that there probably is a certain type of housing, and more than likely it's all single family. But I think it's also, I was looking at your 2012 housing analysis and looking at the survey responses in that, and it suggested that there were some renters. Are those renters, you know, identifying that they live in a single family home for their family, or are they in a accessory apartment, or how are they identifying where they live? And I think that's kind of where we go with this particular question 15. I know there was a lot of discussion and suggestion to remove that. Again, I think it was to identify the respondent and the consideration of where they think they live, using the definitions and the responses that we have here.
Can I ask, what is an accessory apartment? What would that be?
So accessory apartment, at least in the terms that, in the term of zoning, which is more than likely how the planning board or ZBA would address it, is specific to having another living unit with kitchen, with an additional access, either detached from the home or attached, depending on how the town permits it, if they do. A lot of times in my discussions with other communities, it's kind of an unsaid thing where the building inspector is approving these projects or approving permits with a very obvious additional point of access and egress for another family or for an in-law to live there. An accessory apartment would basically be the land use authority approved residential use that's trying to be identified here. So it really is the understanding of the person answering this, whether or not, you know, they know that they live in an accessory apartment or not.
Oh, I have a comment here, Peter. So in going through the database for the internet, I think we can probably count on one hand, maybe two at the most, the number of apartments in this town, or the number of two-family houses might be 3 of them. And there are certainly no condos or townhouses, and hopefully never will be. So this is a lot of space to, I mean, there just aren't a lot of rentals. There are a few, yes. A couple of people on here have apartments, but they're limited.
Yeah, so we'll reduce that. We'll just say, you know, do you, I guess we don't really need to know what kind of a house they live in, because you know, I mean, you know what your building stock is. So maybe what we want to know is just, do you own or rent, to get a sense of that. If that difference, as Kara, you know, that was in the chat, Josh said, well, does it really matter? And sometimes it matters because.
Oh, and I was saying, if it does matter, we should ask the question, because I don't think we ask it if they own or rent.
And again,
that was in the housing analysis. So maybe it's worthwhile to, you know, put that question back to the respondents, whether or not they own or rent. So we can definitely add that.
So maybe we'll just leave it at that. Do you own or rent? And then move on to the next question in terms of living independently.
You can take out condo or townhome though. I mean,
we're just going to get rid of all of that and just say, do you own or rent, and then move on. Because Peter made it clear that there's single family homes.
Yeah, I agree, Jennifer.
So Jennifer says, yeah. So we can say, do you own or rent? Or we could have a third question. Do you own your home? Do you rent your home? If you own your home, do you rent it out? Do you rent a portion of it out or something like that to get at that, if that would be helpful?
Why do we care?
Yeah, right, exactly. Why do we care? We probably don't. I mean, I guess we do care in terms of if you're looking at regulatory change, and if we hear from young people that I really wish I could live here, but I can't afford it, and people say, well, if I could take my big house and make a portion of it into an accessory apartment and then rent it out to some young people, then that would be a regulatory change that you would want to be considering going forward in terms of making it possible to do that.
That makes sense.
And so the question of the satisfaction with your present housing, that really is more important than understanding, than having them tell us that they live in a single family home. So does anybody have any concerns with those questions? And then number 19, in terms of the future, we've heard some opinions that you hope there will never be condominiums, but other people may want there to be condominiums.
And I think, and Edna brought it up with regards to what the planning board is exploring, is the possibility of mixed uses, which usually implies that there's going to be some sort of more dense development with commercial, on the ground floor, let's say. That's just a quick and easy example. But I mean, that's more of a comment with regards to the different types of housing types that are available to be developed. And currently in your zoning, you allow single and two families, depending on where you are in town. But yeah, so I don't know if there was.
Small comment, you go from 17 to 19. Where's question 18?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna make sure that I did see that comment. So we're gonna make sure that everything is numbered correctly.
So I think 17 to, in my opinion, 17 to 21 could be eliminated entirely or else condensed into one question. There's so much in here that will never apply to Blandford. It doesn't now and won't. So,
well, I'm interested in seeing what people say for 19.
Yeah.
19.
I think that we've had a lot of discussions on senior citizen housing in town and how to keep seniors in their homes for longer and in the community for longer.
Okay.
So I would love to hear kind of what we get for a response to those.
Yeah, I agree. And also with the like an in-law apartment,
that's what accessory apartments
some of
are.
the senior situation as well.
Hey.
Yeah, that's what accessory apartments are.
So I didn't know that, Catherine. So I'm wondering if next to accessory apartment, you put in
call it in-law apartment. Yeah.
Yeah, parentheses, i.e. in-law apartment, or however you know.
But we're getting rid of that question. I mean, it's going to be merged somewhere else, but yeah, but we'll make sure that we clarify that. And back to Kara's comment about the future in terms of what could be built in Blandford. I don't know how many people are familiar with in Goshen and West Hampton. Recently, the CDC did some elderly housing that, really fits in nicely with the community. And so one thing we could do, is put a link. Obviously, if you're doing it electronically, we could put a link to that, to those developments. And then also with the paper version, we could just put a photograph of what that looks like. We could play around with that, whether that is worthwhile, but let's keep going. So we're going to merge these and shorten them, but leave in the future question. And then we heard about removing this definition of affordable housing because it makes people think that there's going to be a whole lot of housing development happening.
Yeah, and I think that the questions that we have already kind of addressed this component of whether or not towns residents feel like they can still afford to live there. And I think that there are policies that we definitely will be incorporating within the document with regards to housing, knowing that housing is a concern, not only for the Commonwealth, but for many communities in the Valley. So I think that if anything, we can somehow take this out and figure out how to incorporate the meat of that.
Great.
Catherine and Ken, I don't want to take away from this amazing progress that we're doing now. It's 4:27. I know we gave folks a time of an hour and a half, and I did want to hear from you guys about the section captains.
Oh yeah, the chapter captains. So can you just scroll down and see how much more we have so we can get rid of this, these examples. So basically we just have the land use. And I think we can, based on this conversation, I think we have a good sense, and we will shorten and condense and emphasize cottage industries and get you back a revised version. We need a lot of open space questions because we're updating the open space and recreation plan at the same time. So, yeah, so let's quickly tell you about chapter captains. The chapter captains are another group of volunteers, and you all can volunteer to be chapter captains if you want to take on another estimated 30 hours of time between now and June 15th. But since you're already doing this, what we were hoping was that you could identify people, talk to your friends and family, and identify people to work on the 7, or they could be on the 9, but we were thinking more about the 7 subject area chapters. So, many of you serve on the Historic Commission. There may be some other local historian who might not want to be on the committee, but might want to be a liaison to Shannon, our historic preservation planner, as she's writing the chapter. And basically it's just, she would call the person once and say, this is what I'm thinking and what's your take? And then that would be that person. If they wanted to read a draft, they could read the draft before it goes to the committee. And so the idea is to broaden the scope of people who are volunteering and who feel like they have a real, vested interest in the success of the plan, but also to give us and the people working on the chapters some local insights and somebody so like I'll be doing the public services facilities chapter, I can call somebody and just say, so this is where I'm coming from and it looks like this. Does this make sense? Am I missing something? So so we have the 7 subject area chapters, land use, housing, transportation, open space and recreation, historic, cultural, public services, and facilities. So that's what we were thinking. And if there's anybody that pops into your head, you can email us directly. You can tell Mary, and Mary will email us, or tell Josh or Joanne. But that's the idea of the chapter captains. And the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs was very excited about the idea when they read it in the grant proposal. And so we hope that we can make it happen. Master plan completion is going to be done by June 30th, same time as the OSRP. Everything, it's on the state fiscal year. It's funding from the state.
What's our target date to get this survey out?
Well, I think we should still stick with Mary's goal of having something by January 15th to put in the street mailing, whether it's a 1-pager like welcome to the master plan, this is what's happening, here's the survey link, a copy will be dropped off at your home and you can get it at the transfer station. So I think January 15th the survey will be ready to go electronically and on paper.
Maybe you guys can design how that would look like. Have Todd or
and Judy Barrett, our engagement people, part of their job is to design all the flyers and all the outreach stuff. So we definitely either Judy and her team or Todd and his team will make a gorgeous flyer that we will draft and send to Mary and Joanne to share with everybody. And so when we meet again, we're meeting the 3rd Thursday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's after the 15th. So we will have had to have a subcommittee look at the thing and get it all approved, the revised survey. We'll email it to everybody and give you a last chance, but we will not have another meeting to talk about it.
Good.
Good.
And then the only other thing we were going to tell you about was the work that Sharon and Amber are doing under our supervision. They're not working independently all by themselves. They're reviewing all your existing plans, and we will have a summary of all the plans for you at the next meeting, a spreadsheet that says, here's the plan and these are the goals and major recommendations. And then the same thing for your regulations, analysis of your zoning regulations, subdivision, general bylaws with respect to resilience and the goals that are in the existing plans, and how likely it is that you have the regulations in place to achieve your vision. Because we're trying to make sure that everybody knows all the time that you have a plan, you have regulations, and you have your capital improvements budget. And those are the three major things, that build your community.
Yeah, so we'll make sure that when those projects are completed, we'll send that out to the group.
The plan is to get this out before our next meeting.
The survey.
We want to have it ready for the 15th for that mailer that you have to do for the streets.
Mary, how much does it cost to get these mailers out? What do we spend on stamps if we were to mail?
So the street list has to go first class.
I think it's about $200
to send it to every household.
if you do a bulk mail.
Yeah.
How do we do that? Do we have that?
Okay, bulk mail.
We have a permit, I believe.
We do have a permit, but bulk mail may not always go to every single household, whereas the street list mailed first class will go to every household.
Right. So we can do both. We can do the flyer in the welcome, please participate mailer in the street thing first class, and then we can do a bulk mailing of the whole paper survey to every household.
That would work.
I had another thought. So every year I get these horrible surveys for do I have a gambling addiction, which I don't, but anyways, they send $1 in the envelope. Now I know as a municipality we have to be careful what we do, but they send $1 in the envelope, and I feel so bad that they've paid me $1 that I fill it out.
Yep.
So I don't know if there's anything, even when I have this behavioral form I have to fill out at school for kids, and it's 3 pages long, and so the psychologist always gives us a couple chocolate bars.
Right.
And she's like, listen, I've given you these chocolate bars and now you feel like you owe them something.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's anything we can do that would sort of help us with our cause to here's this, please fill out the survey, just something to kind of think about.
Great. We will reflect on that. That's really good. No, that's great.
Oh, we might have to include a return stamp or something, right? We don't want them to bear the cost. Unless I don't know, things to think about. We can figure that out later.
Because that's going to be easier than having them drop it, because then you're asking them to drive somewhere, which sounds simple, but is a pain for people. Yeah.
Outreach, civic engagement. There's always some sort of weird barrier.
Especially during the winter.
Yes.
But I also wanted to take this opportunity to share the Blandford project website. So there is a website for this project, blandfordmasterplan.pvpc.org. And the intention is to put all of the planning documents, of which currently there are all of the planning documents to date from the previous plans that the town has done, from the community development plan up to your 2004 open space plan, your housing analysis, among some other ones, as well as minutes, slides, any materials that we share today will be posted.
The recordings?
Recordings, once we figure out how we're hosting them, but those will be posted there today. That's why we're recording.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why the link isn't live. I put blandfordmasterplan.pvpc.org in the chat, but it's not clickable right now. I don't know why. And we are revising the text slightly based on Mary's input about clarifying what is a resilient master plan versus a master plan. So if you go there tonight, the text may be slightly off, but we're updating that. But again, as Ken said, all the plans, most of the plans are already there. So if you want to start looking at them.
And that will be a great tool for when we share the work that Amber and Taryn have done. to look at the goals and values that they've identified from those plans. And then you'll have access to the plans to, read further into those plans.
Yeah, did you all know that in 1865, Blandford produced 30% of the United States cheese?
Yep.
You did know that?
It
Isn't that incredible?
slowed down in
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
Of course you do, Chips.
Chip knows.
He knows everything.
He does.
30% of cheese in the United States. Wow.
That's impressive. I think we
No,
need
it's
to
incredible.
make some t-shirts that maybe have that on there.
Blandford cheese.
Blandford cheese.
Fun fact.
learn more about Orange Sage. Very interesting character who was involved with developing that whole thing.
Really?
And, and somebody who became an enormous philanthropist and was involved in the major restoration of the church back in the middle part of the 19th century, and went on to be he finally moved to Ware and ended up being the founder of a bank in Ware, and was one of the major philanthropists to support Williams College, all having to do with Blandford cheese.
So Mary, is there anything else you want us to do in the meeting?
I can't think of anything. No, I think we're good. Just let us send out the revised survey, and we'll go from there. And everybody knows next meeting is the third Thursday in January.
I have a question. Could we move the meeting up to an earlier time? 3:30, by the time we're done, is really cutting into supper making time, dinner making time.
We start at 3, I think, but are you suggesting earlier than 3?
No, today's meeting for most of us started at 3:30.
No.
3.
Started at 3.
No, Mary told me 3:30.
Uh-oh.
Well, she told you the wrong time. We started at 3.
Oh,
Wow.
I thought it was 3:30.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Margaret.
God.
All right.
So
I
it's
personally
3.
can't do much earlier, Margaret, only because I'm teaching until.
Yeah, no,
about
3 is
3.
fine, but then
Okay,
we went another half an hour or so.
Oh, no worries.
So is 3 to 4:30 doable? Is it okay to go up to right to 4:30 if we stopped then, an hour and a half? Okay,
That
Fine
is
by me.
fine. Yeah.
okay.
Yep. Okay.
Well, thank you all so much for your time. It's really wonderful to work with you, and it's great to see you, and happy holidays. I hope you all enjoy time with your very close family and nobody else.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, take care,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Night.